I'll start our next story with a question. How many times have you paid attention to safety guidelines on a plane? Most of us don't. We just treat it as a nuisance. Yet every flight repeats the same instructions. Do you know why? Because rules and SOPs more often than not save lives. Case in point, Japan Airlines. Yesterday, one of their flights exploded into a fireball. It was after a collision with a Coast Guard plane. There were 379 people on board. They had a miraculous escape. All of them survived, 379 people. How did they pull it off? By following the rules. It was a textbook evacuation and a lesson on why it's important to pay attention to those flight safety guidelines. Here's a report.
Your attention please for the last two passengers. The last two passengers.
At landing, I felt strong shaking, and when I looked at the window, I saw sparks flying and burning. Even though I heard screams, mostly people were calm and did not stand up from their seats, but kept sitting and waiting. Another slide came down in the back, so I used the backslide and escaped.
On paper, it was a textbook evacuation. There was a runway incursion. The plane came to a standstill. Smoke started filling the cabin. Escape chutes were activated. And within minutes, people were out of the plane unhurt. It sounds too good to be true, but this is exactly what Japan Airlines achieved. On Tuesday, their flight 516 collided with a Coast Guard plane as it landed. In just minutes, the plane turned into a fireball. But the passengers and crew escaped, all 379 of them. How? By following the rules.
When you ride a plane, it shows the video about emergency escape. Now I indeed think that we should watch those videos carefully and keep that information in our head.
When the collision happened, at first there was disbelief. The plane was speeding across the runway. There was fire, there was heat, and there was panic. Outside the windows, all passengers could see a raging inferno. But soon the survival instinct kicked in. As soon as smoke entered the cabin, passengers could barely see, but the plane still held up. The flight was an Airbus 350, one of the first flights to be made of carbon fiber materials, so it could resist the fire for some time. And that's when the crew jumped into action. They had a few minutes and over 300 passengers to get out. First, they identified which exits were close to the flames. Those were avoided. Then the announcement system wasn't working, so the instructions had to be shouted out. Only 3 inflatable slides could be used, but even then, they were not properly deployed. That's because of the jet's condition. But despite that, passengers started sliding off.
I did smell a little bit of smoke, but I didn't see passengers panicking. We all got off the plane in about 5 minutes.
No one rushed for their bags or any other luggage. They just followed the instructions of the crew, and many believe that's what made the difference between life and death. Even though it was a textbook evacuation, it happened in the most extreme of situations.
I can only say it was a miracle. We could have died if we were late in evacuating.
But the love for rules hasn't come easy for Japan Airlines. And you understand that when you enter their office. Their corporate headquarters displays wreckage. It's from a plane accident in 1985. The JAL Flight 123 was flying from Tokyo to Osaka. It crashed, killing 520 people on board. It is the deadliest single aircraft accident in aviation history. For the airline, it was devastating. They vowed to take safety seriously, to make sure nothing like this happened ever again. It looks like 40 years later, the actions have paid off. So next time you hear safety guidelines on a plane, take off those headphones, sit up and listen. One day, it could save your life.